The last time Oklahoma and Brent Venables stepped on the turf inside Memorial Stadium, they didn't get the ball in the end zone a single time. The defense was led by Ndamukong Suh and Prince Amukamara, and the Blackshirts took over the game with 5 interceptions to hold off the Sooners 10-3. A lot's changed since that win, but the two guys in charge now know all too well how important a win on Saturday is for their schools, their fans, their players, and for Mickey Joseph, his future as head coach at Nebraska. The last two top 10 teams that rolled through Lincoln barely escaped with a win, and as the number 3 team in the nation last year, OU needed a blocked extra point and a late touchdown to secure a victory in Norman. But last year's in the rear view because with new head coaches, new quarterbacks, and basically all new rosters, everything we learned about last year is getting thrown out the window. So today, I'm running through what we learned from Mickey's press conference, and I'm going to give you my preview and prediction for this rivalry game against Oklahoma. But what's up, guys? I'm Connor Hayden, and this is Corn Crazed. If you're a fan of Nebraska or the Big Ten, make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss any of the content I drop. And if you're hyped up to see this old school rivalry matchup, smash the like button now to help us get to 1,000. And now, let's get into it.
Across midfield. Touchdown, Nebraska! Omar Manning!
I watched Mickey's first press conference as the man in charge this morning, and even though it didn't answer everything, there were 3 things we learned that give us a clearer picture on the staff and a practice adjustment that I think everybody can get hyped about. First thing is, Mike Cassano is the new wide receivers coach now that Mickey has to help out with everything else. So if you don't know much about him, he's been an analyst on this staff for 5 years, but he was a passing game coordinator and receivers coach at UMass back in 2015 when they ranked 11th nationally in passing offense. And he won an FCS national title as the running backs coach on Whipple's staff at UMass back in 1998, so he should have no problem in his new role to help Mickey manage that room. The second coaching addition is at safety. We know that Travis Fisher's been coaching corners and safeties the whole time he's been here, but Mickey said almost every school in the country has 2 coaches in that DB room, and that most defensive coordinators take on a role as a position coach. So because Shenander hasn't been doing that, he's going to take over as the safeties coach now and allow Fisher just to focus on the corners. Sounds like something that should have been done long ago, but whatever, I love the move, and players are going to get better with more one-on-one time. And the last big note we can all get excited about, Mickey Joseph said they're going to start tackling in practice. And I have no idea why it took this long to do so, but I don't really care. I'm just glad somebody stepped in and finally made it happen, because good and bad tackling is the difference between winning and losing football games. Quick note for anybody who bought merch today or is buying anything over the next few days. I leave tomorrow for the game this weekend, so I'm not going to be sending out any orders until after Sunday the 18th. So if you do notice a delay, I just wanted to let you know now. It's because I pack out my own orders and I won't be home to do it this week. But if you haven't gotten your merch yet or you haven't gotten a chance to check out my store, you can go to corncraze.com or you can click the link in the description below. You can get a hat, socks, shirt, hoodie, wristbands, or whatever else I'm selling in there. And to everybody who's already purchased something, it means a ton, and I really appreciate all of the support you guys are giving me. I'm getting really good feedback on the packaging and on the quality, so I'm just glad you guys like it as much as I do. Tomorrow night, we're back with the Corn Craze Social Club live stream to do another live call-in show since everybody loved it the first time. So that's going to be on Wednesday, the 14th at 7 p.m. Central. Just make sure you're subscribed so you get notified once I'm going live. And then you can hop in there to talk with John from Corn Nation and I. You can call in through Discord and give us any thoughts or ask any questions you've got. Should be a good time. I've also had some requests on Discord asking me how I sit in really good seats for cheap whenever I go to games around the country. So I'm going to teach you guys how I buy from scalpers on that live stream too. If you've been following my channel for longer than a week, then you already heard that this is going to be my first time back in Lincoln since the Ohio State blowout back in 2019. And now that we've closed the chapter on the past, I'm even more excited for this trip. I fly out to my dad's house in Oklahoma tomorrow. Then on Thursday, he and I are going to drive up about 5.5 hours to hang out there all day Friday. Then we're obviously going to be at the game on Saturday. And he's a USC grad, born and raised in California just like me. So this is going to be his first time ever going to a Nebraska home game. So I'm pretty pumped it's for a rivalry. Last year we went to the game in Norman, and once it ended, his friend Barry invited us over to his house to watch some more games. So I got to check out Barry Switzer's office and see all the hardware he collected over the years. So even though it was a losing day for Nebraska, I had a great time, and I cannot wait to have another memorable experience with my dad this week. If you're wondering how my dad knows Barry, since I was confused on that one too, they met on a cruise ship in Russia right before COVID, and they became friends during that vacation. Random, I know, but it worked out great for me. I've been going to games with my dad since I was probably 12 years old, so we've watched Nebraska play in Ann Arbor, Madison, Happy Valley, Columbus, the Holiday Bowl, the Rose Bowl, the Coliseum, and probably some others, but he's only seen Nebraska win twice in person, so I'm really hoping they can pull off a miracle on Saturday. But now, on to the game preview. I want to take a second to appreciate what we're getting this weekend because for some fans, this could be the last Nebraska-OU matchup they see in their lifetime. The new super conferences are coming, and even though there's a home and away series scheduled 7 years from now, we have no idea how non-conference scheduling is going to change. In the last 110 years, OU and Nebraska have played 88 times, traditionally in cold weather in November, but if I gotta sweat while I watch them, that's okay too. The last 3 games between these two have all been decided by a touchdown or less. And in the last 60 years, there was only 1 game where neither team was ranked inside the top 20 nationally. Not only was this a massive rivalry for the schools, but this matchup would often determine which team got a shot at the national championship. And I'm trying to think of a rivalry today that would compare to what OU and Nebraska was throughout the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. But the closest comparison would be like an LSU-Bama in 2019 or Michigan-Ohio State last year, but for 50 years straight. And the last 2 years were no different. OU's a contender again this year, and they're ranked number 6 in the nation with a championship head coach, one of the top quarterbacks in the Big 12, and a ton of future NFL prospects on their roster. We know we'll always get to watch 12 games every season, but we're lucky if we get to see Nebraska and OU go at it once every 10 years. You know who really understands this rivalry? These 2 coaches. Before being named head coach a few months back, Brent Venables was a national championship winning coordinator at OU, and with family from Nebraska, he's been going to games in Lincoln since the 80s. My favorite quote from a podcast he was on this week was about how great Nebraska fans are and how we'll make OU players feel special and all good inside. But his message to the team this week is that no matter how nice Nebraska fans seem, they don't like you. Mickey Joseph has his own memory linked back to the Sooners. In 1990, as the starting quarterback, he led a top 10 Nebraska team into Norman with a 9-1 record, but just a few minutes into the game, an extremely late hit out of bounds resulted in a broken leg and ultimately ended Joseph's career as a quarterback. But you want more recent tension? Casey Thompson's dad and brother both played quarterback at OU. And last year as a starter at Texas, he had his squad up 18 points at halftime. He ended up injuring his hand in that game and it affected the rest of his season. But his stat line was awesome. 20 of 34 for 388 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 0 turnovers. OU came back and won 55-48 while Casey had to stand by and watch the Texas defense crumble. You think he's pumped for this one? Now on to the preview part of this video. I don't know what to expect this week because even with the extra tackling in practice and with Chins helping out with safeties, it's just too short a notice for there to be any significant changes that make me believe these coaches can do enough to see a different result. And with 0 sacks last week against a Sunbelt team, just breaks my heart, especially knowing how talented we are at edge rusher. So everything comes down to how bad these guys want it. How focused are they when they're in a position to make a tackle, and how much force are they bringing off the line to drive that guy who's in front of them straight back to disrupt Dylan Gabriel's rhythm. On offense, we know there's serious firepower. Casey Thompson's the number 6 rated quarterback by PFF's grading system, and on almost 100 passes, his completion percentage is damn near 64%. He's thrown 4 and ran 4 in for scores, and even though he hasn't been perfect, his clutch factor on that last drive against Georgia Southern was the best we've seen from a Nebraska quarterback in years. Anthony Grant's the number 8 graded running back by PFF, and he hasn't been tackled for a loss a single time on 69 carries. He's averaging over 6 yards per touch with 142 yards a game, and even Venables acknowledged knowing exactly who he was since his high school days in Georgia and said that Grant looks like one of the best backs in the country. Not a good back, not a gifted athlete, one of the best, period. On the line, I don't want to call him out by name, but one of Nebraska's tackles is ranking in the bottom 35 of all starters in the country, and we consistently see sacks and pressure coming from that side. So hopefully there's a solution and Mickey recognizes the weak side, but that's been pretty dangerous for our guy in the pocket. The hope is we'll see Travis Vokalek back out there because he had a great game against Northwestern before he got hurt, and he had a massive catch on OU's D last year. But if we can get Vokalek in that rotation with Palmer and Washington and some of these other guys who've just gotten better as the season's gone on, this is going to be an exciting offense to watch Whipple throw at Venables on Saturday. We're sticking with offense, but I'll flip over to the other team. We haven't seen OU play anybody good yet since their first 2 home games were against UTEP and Kent State, who have no business being on the field with a Jeff Lebby offense. But one thing we have learned is that these guys are fast. They spread the field and run a lot of hitch routes and seams to get their receivers one-on-one where they can make a 20-yard pass go for 60 off a missed tackle. And they've got 3 really good receivers, but the one who's a star is Marvin Mims, and he's averaging 24 yards a catch and over 120 yards a game. And Dylan Gabriel isn't rated as highly as Casey is on PFF, but he's completed over 70% of his passes for 530 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 0 turnovers. So I can confirm he's a problem. The O-line's given up 5 sacks in 2 games, so even though they're really good, they're not impenetrable. So if Shenander decides to bring some pressure or something special to get Memorial Stadium jumping, he might have some success off the blitz and get the quarterback down in the backfield since he won't throw any stupid desperation passes. Their game plan's to throw first and get the DBs to backpedal all game, then run draws straight up the middle from shotgun for over 7 yards a carry. It's a fast, painful death, and it gets the offense off the field quick. Oklahoma's time of possession's almost half of what its opponents had in the first 2 games, so basically it'll look like what we thought we were getting when Frost came over from UCF. And the defense? It's special. There's a reason Clemson's been elite for so long. In their first 2 games, they've already got 9 sacks and 24 tackles for loss. They've only played 2 games. For comparison, Nebraska's only got 9 for a loss with 2 sacks, and they've played an extra game. I think the best way to describe their D is unforgiving. If you miss a read, slip a block, don't run a good route, or whatever else, they're going to make you pay. Their blitzes are fun to watch because they come from different angles pretty much all the time, and I think I got to stop talking about it because I'll just get myself worked up and stressed out for no reason. Let's talk about the betting line for this game because it's moving a bunch. Before the season started, the projection was Oklahoma -3, which made sense based on what we saw last year. Then things went downhill with the defense and Georgia Southern made their statement, so the line jumped all the way up to 15. Then the next morning, Scott Frost got fired and now we're down to 11.5. So the question is Scott Frost alone really worth 3.5 points? The over's set to 67, which feels pretty low since Georgia Southern just scored 45 last weekend, but maybe Vegas knows something about this matchup that we don't. And I know I said it's too dangerous for me to be betting on Nebraska with sloppy line play and bad tackling and everything else that's been going on, but if you're going to give me 11.5 points at home with a coach who's trying to prove himself and a quarterback who's been waiting an entire year for his second chance, I'm taking Nebraska and the points all day. Whipple's offense went for over 400 yards on Venables last season, and that was with a Clemson team who'd already experienced hostile environments and who'd already been battle tested together. So Oklahoma's going to be really good, and they're only going to get better as they get more comfortable in their new system. But they've been playing cupcakes at home and hardly broke a sweat. I'm banking on the team to come together after they lost their coach and to play with less tension and stress now that the elephant's out of the room. OU's offense is going to score regardless of how strong the defense is. So the real questions are, how efficient can the offense be? Can special teams play mistake-free? Can the D end a few drives with 3 instead of 7? And can the entire team work together to win that turnover battle? I'm already sold on the offense. Marquise Buford Jr. loves forcing turnovers, and outside of a couple missed 50-plus yard field goals, special teams has done its job. Now I'm a homer, and I know they'll fight to the end this weekend, but I also got to keep it real. So I'm picking Oklahoma to win this one 42-34, but I've got zero doubt in my mind that this Mickey Joseph-led team can pull off the upset and show the rest of the country what they were capable of all along. But I want to know what you think, so let me know in the comments below. Is OU coming in scared of this team at all, or are they still laughing about Georgia Southern? Is Casey Thompson ready to throw 5 more touchdowns this game, or are you all in on the Anthony Grant show? Are you a believer in Nebraska plus 11.5, or is that one score magic gone now that Scott Frost isn't here anymore? I would trade my right nut for a win on Saturday, but I already gave that up for an 8-win season, and I still might have to wait another year for that to happen. But I got to get ready for bed since I've got a flight in the morning, so until next time, thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one. Go Big Red.